Democrats have been trying to use the January 6 hearings as at least something to talk about, other than so many of the problems facing their party come the midterms. One of the biggest problems the Democrats are now talking about facing their party come the midterms is the president himself. His approval ratings continue to hit record lows as gas prices continue to hit record highs. And there's a lot of progressives who just aren't that happy with him.
I just want to ask about President Biden. He is saying he's going to run again in 2024. Will you support him?
You know, if the president chooses to run again in 2024, I mean, first of all, I'm focused on winning this majority right now.
That's not a yes.
Yeah, you know, I think we should endorse when we get to it.
All right, you have to go back to the 1970s to find sitting members of Congress entertaining a primary challenge to a member of their own party. And the reason that's happening now is not just because of Mr. Biden's problems of high gas prices and low numbers, but Democrats are frustrated. Mr. Biden isn't giving them any wins. No Green New Deal, no canceling of college loan debt. Free child care hasn't happened. Criminal justice reform hasn't happened. And the Democrats have not been able to protect abortion rights, especially leading up to the Supreme Court decision on Roe. On top of that, Democrats now are openly acknowledging the obvious. President Biden is old. This is the New York Times headline. Should Biden run in 2024? Democratic whispers of no start to rise. In interviews, dozens of frustrated Democratic officials, members of Congress, and voters expressed doubts about the president's ability to rescue his reeling party and take the fight to Republicans. Mike Allen of Axios, founder of Axios, was a little more blunt, writing Biden's age doubts. Mike Allen, founder of Axios, Washington's best sourced reporter, is here with us. Mike, so now we're hearing the quiet part out loud. How out loud is it?
Well, it's out loud. Democrats, Leland, acknowledge that this is a big issue. You talk to people very close to the president, they'll say, when we get to the 2024 election, we're at this moment, Leland, the most likely scenario is President Biden, who then will be 81, versus former President Trump, 78. And people close to the president say Democrats will rally around him because there's only one person in the history of the world who has beaten Donald Trump in a political fight. It's Joe Biden, and they said they'll go with him. But off camera, off scenes, Democrats acknowledge this is a huge issue. And Leland, pull back the camera. Like I called our piece today, American Gerontocracy. Because look at the age of the congressional leadership and leaders around the country. And this is a time when technology, culture, workplace, relations, social relations, all changing at an incredible speed. And it leaves so many of the nation's leaders out of touch with the voters who hire them.
You think about the Democrats in Congress, specifically Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, Clyburn, their combined ages, 245 years old. That is the age of the Republic itself. So if you go forward with this of, OK, who would it be? Can't be any of them. Who could run in 2024 if President Biden doesn't? Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, Roy Cooper. He's the governor of North Carolina, Sherrod Brown, Cory Booker, Gavin Newsom, and the woman you heard from earlier, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Are any of them, Mike, starting to move the chess pieces behind the scenes to get ready, a shadow primary, if you will?
They can't, and here's why. A, you're not going to shoot at the king, the president. A Democrat can't make an overt move. But look at the vice president, Kamala Harris, the first woman of color who's vice president. In the Democratic Party, you can't openly take her on. And so either one of them is going to have the establishment backing of the party. So this has to be done very subtly. But Leland, here's a tip. Here's a way that I would look at that list that you just reeled off. A lot of Democrats are saying, if for some reason it's not the president or the vice president, we can debate that, but we're on Earth 2, and for whatever reason, we're stipulating it is not the president or the vice president running in 2024. Look outside Washington. So you mentioned the Michigan governor, Gretchen Whitmer, Pennsylvania governor. You mentioned the California governor. Gavin Newsom. Those are the people that I think would get a very close look, because you look around at what's happening, and if it's not the president or the vice president, it's probably going to be someone outside the Beltway.
Two very different molds, though, right? As we sort of continue the parlor game. You've got a Gavin Newsom, extraordinarily progressive. You got Gretchen Whitmer somewhere in the middle. You have a Roy Cooper. If Democrats are going to have this reckoning, do they go the Walter Mondale, Michael Dukakis route, or do they go the Bill Clinton route?
I mean, that very debate is how they got here, of course, right? President Biden, who comes from the more moderate wing, but has been so frustrated and flummoxed in what he can accomplish by Democrats who are more to the left. And you have that incredible clip there, the Congresswoman, and if you won't say yes, you're saying no at this point when you're talking about endorsing that titular head of your party. So that's what's fascinating, and what's one of the many historic elements of our time is both parties are being remade in real time before our eyes. It's impossible to say which strain of Democrats are going to take over. What strain of Republican post-Trump? Like, we know that it's going to be very Trumpy. We know that the Republican Party is more Trumpy today than it was in 2020. So we know the direction of it. But in the long term, who's going to run that party? Equally unknown, makes these incredibly historic times.
You speak about historic times. You have a unique perspective on politics in Washington. You came up through the George W. Bush campaign, a young, energetic former governor from Texas. He becomes president. You cover him in the White House. Then you end up having Barack Obama. You cover his run for the presidency, the first African-American, a young senator from Illinois. He becomes president. These two young men, back-to-back, different views, but still have this energy about them, this youth and inspiration and feeling in America that they capture. Then you have now the two oldest guys who've ever held the president, President Trump, now Joe Biden. Obviously, you had Reagan in the past. But what is it? How did we have this huge shift from the very young and visionary to the very old with no young visionaries behind them?
And Leland, I'm going to go you one better. I'm hearing a lot of Democrats talk about virtually unknown governor of Arkansas, Bill Clinton, in a wide open primary in 1992. And I think we're hearing a lot of analogies to 1992. If we're on our Earth 2, if for some reason it's not the president or the vice president, it is going to be wide open. The list that you rattled off is just going to be the start. And that's where you get a surprise. And that's what we got with Bill Clinton, a surprise from outside Washington. And the shift between generations, it just shows the discontinuity in our politics, that so much is changing so fast. The voters changing, the electorate is changing, the country is changing. And that's why we get these wild shifts. Then look at the building behind you, now sopping wet, the Capitol. There, we're also about to see a big change that you had all Democratic rule in Washington, all party rule, a rare thing in Washington. Now it's looking like Republicans will, at the very least, take the House. Could be a red wave where Republicans take the Senate. And all of a sudden, 2 years after the nation made a big statement, everything's changed.
Okay, you made a great point about Bill Clinton, adding to that list, adding to my list of W, Obama, Bill Clinton preceding both of them. Democrats seem to have this feeling that if they can focus enough attention on January 6th, they can make November about a referendum on Donald Trump rather than a referendum on the economy. We know how each one of those plays out. What are you hearing from Democrats after the first two hearings, the first two episodes, if you will, of the January 6th miniseries? How confident are they that they are actually changing the minds of persuadable voters?
They're not, and that's going to be a great tug of war, Leland, is Democrats want to be talking about January 6th, or perhaps if Roe versus Wade is overturned, they think that could galvanize them, although that issue definitely has complications. Whereas Republicans, as you and I have talked about, want to be talking about the 3 I's: immigration, inflation, infant formula at this point as proxies for issues with the Biden economy. And so that question, like, what are we going to be talking about, is such a big deal. I can tell you that Democrats today thought these hearings were a grand slam. I talked to a lot of Democrats, people in both parties, frankly, who thought that today's hearing should have been the one that was in prime time, because you had true Trump insiders, people who had worked for the president, saying that he was totally off base with what he was saying about the 2020 election. So it made for really compelling TV. And Leland, a little behind the scenes, just as we saw you and your team scrambling through that summer shower. An amazing scramble by the January 6th committee today. So the hearing was supposed to start at 10 a.m. Eastern. A little after 9, an email popped up in your inbox and my inbox that said that the star witness, the marquee witness, Bill Stepien, the former campaign manager for President Trump, wasn't going to be able to appear. Turned out he's having a baby, a pretty good excuse, right? But here's what happened behind the scenes that will interest your viewers. The January 6th committee had teed up several clips from his deposition to use in case he said things that they wanted to challenge. So they were basically going to try to catch him in saying different things today with the clips that he'd used from his deposition. They just rewrote the script for the beginning of the hearing, repackaged those clips, and made those clips the hearing. So the stars of this show weren't there. Former Attorney General Bill Barr was on video, and also Bill Stepien on video, and then the fascinating live witness, live testimony, of course, from Chris Starwell, now here of NewsNation.
You've been able to sort of watch the arc of so many of these stories, and we always talk about any one big story in Washington as, oh, that's what's going to change things. And really, you've got 2 or 3 or 4 lifetimes, political lifetimes between now and November. Do Democrats look to anything and say that realistically could define us and give us a win between now and November?
Well, Leland, look at all these tectonic plates, and it's important for your viewers to pause and think about the history they're living with you every night. So when President Biden started his term, he talked about 4 crises: economy, COVID, climate, racial equality. We can agree that those are all 4 massive issues transforming the country. Then look at what's happened since then. You have a historic market correction. You have war in Europe. You have a potential change in Roe v. Wade. Any one of those, you have January 6th and its aftermath. Any one of those is a sort of hinge moment that you're going to write books about. There's only a couple hinge moments in our lifetime since World War II. You can talk about the fall of the Soviet Union. You can talk about 9/11. You can talk about the great crash. But we're suddenly having a bunch of these all at once, history on fast forward. So any person, any party who thinks that they know what's going to move voters, impossible. And I've got a twist for you, Leland. I have something. We always come on here and we act like we can explain things. I have something that's very difficult to explain. And there was just another poll from Gallup today that showed this same thing. Again and again, Leland, there's polling that shows that people are very pessimistic about the direction of the country. They're worried about what's happening. They're cranky at work. They're sad at work. They're mad at work. They're worried at work. And yet, you ask people about their personal situation, and people want to be, at least until recently, people felt pretty good about their personal finances, their personal opportunity. And so that's a real conundrum as we head into the election. Like, the big challenge for journalists is to take the events in the country that are the backdrop for the election, then watch these specific races play out on that backdrop. But here, like, there's a real uncertainty about where the country is. Even just take workers, and we're doing some reporting on this right now at Axios. Workers are freer to move than they ever have. There's a new polling out showing that 20% of people might move for their job. And yet we find that people in their jobs right now are very frustrated. So workers have more freedom than ever, but are reporting less satisfaction than ever. How can you draw a line between those? Opportunity for employers who are a great place to work, and for cities around the country that are a great place to work. If you look at the exodus from San Francisco, you look at all the places that have grown since March of 2020, that's all opportunity. Every one of those, Leland, is part of the tapestry that's going to be November 2022.
And it is a tapestry that is just getting woven. Much to read about tomorrow morning. And Mike, in your morning note, Axios AM, sneak peek tonight from Axios, a little bit more about the January 6th hearings. Mike, I say this as you sit in a studio across from me, unable to say it to a person. A friend shows up, a true friend stays through a thunderstorm to continue the conversation. It's good to see you, and my thanks.
Thank you for your coverage, Leland.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.